Hey guys, welcome back to the African Mavericks podcast. I'm your host, Ebuka Nwana. And over here, we're all about encouraging young Africans to be independent minded about their purpose. Now, and if you vibe with those values, please stick around because on today's episode, I had the privilege of chatting with the amazing Folake Kofo-Idowu. During our conversation, Folake takes us through her journey from medical school in Lagos, Nigeria, to making a big impact with her nonprofit, Amal Outreach. We talk about the hurdles she's jumped, the key moments that define her path, and her passion for improving health in underserved communities in Nigeria, as well as Africa. You will hear how her personal mission or personal experience is driving her mission to create a sustainable healthcare system. Now, what you're about to hear is the first part of an amazing 2-hour conversation. While we were editing, we couldn't figure out how to condense this down into 1 hour or even shorter. Even after listening to it 3 to 4 times, because of how valuable the conversation, or how amazing the conversation was, or insightful it was, we figured we would just break the 2-hour conversation into 2 parts. So without much further ado, let's jump right into the first part of Folake's story of resilience, purpose, and amazingness. Thank you so much, Folake, for agreeing to have this conversation with me. I messaged you on LinkedIn out of the blue, and you accepted to have the conversation. I think that's testament of the kind of person you are. So again, thank you. The way I usually like to start the conversation, and I think it would be helpful for you, particularly because of how it started. Are you aware of mindfulness and any do you participate? Do you do any mindfulness practices?
Not a lot, but I try to.
Okay. Well, I like to start the conversation by us, taking 3 deep breaths to center ourselves and, set an intention.
All right.
Okay. So if you indulge me, we could start now.
Sure.
All right. How are you feeling now? Do you feel a little more centered?
Good, yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so Folake, could you start by just, giving us a back story or a background of your story, maybe highlighting some pivotal moments that led you to where you are today?
Oh, wow. It's been a lot. Well, first of all, at least I would say I'm Nigerian, right? Nigerian first. And I'm, by profession, I'm a medical doctor. I trained in Lagos. I graduated from Lagos State University College of Medicine in Ikeja. And I guess maybe in terms of that, pivotal, I know that early on in my medical education or so on towards the middle, we're growing up in Nigeria, you hear a lot about one hospital, private hospitals and government hospitals. I remember thinking, I'm never going to set up a private hospital. They're so bad, like government hospital. And then you train in a government institution, you're like, oh my God, this is not good. So I know that at some point, middle towards the end of my medical education, I knew for certain that I wanted to do my additional training outside the country. And for me, it was that I realized in that moment that things needed to change, things needed to be better. And my point of view was, yes, people who are within can change things for the better. But sometimes there's a limit to what, based on what your mind can conceive, and turmoil, right, is psychologically is such a thing, such that it limits it for most people, generally on the average, it limits what you can see, what you can envision, right? And I was like, and in that line of thinking, I was like, if I want to change this system, I have to step outside of it. I have to see more. I have to experience more, because, you know, I remember when I was young, I remember one time I would envision, like, there's this specific type of strappy sandals. I don't know where I got it from. And then I watched the movie and I'm like, oh, that's what I thought of. It existed, but somehow I got it in my head. Maybe I'm just one of those people that is able to envision things without even experiencing it. But I just felt like I can be a little extra like that, where I'm like, no, I have to have hands-on experience, immerse it, so that when someone is telling me, oh, no, it's not doable, I'm like, stop right there. It is very doable, right? I have seen it done. And I've been in several conversations like that, where I tell people, I can tell you the number of health systems I have worked in and how they are different, and how we can merge and pick from them and learn from them and adapt it to our situation in Nigeria. So early on in my medical education, I think somewhere I got, and I was very particular, you know, different people tried to dissuade me, Some of the things they thought would happen did happen. Like, oh, initially I wanted to do heart surgery. But me not doing heart surgery wasn't so much me not getting heart surgery. It was I decided to stop pursuing it for personal reasons. And I believe I found, you know, a path that is, you know, fulfilling. Another pivotal moment, I would say, you know, is just making the firm decision, because, you know, you can dream, I would like to do this, but like putting my foot down, 10 toes, and I'm like, I am doing this, and just deciding I'm going to relocate. A lot of my peers were coming for a master's degree. And I remember when we were calculating the money, I was telling my parents, I said, that much money for lesson? No, we cannot spend that much money. We have to figure out a way. You know, if you're spending $30,000 on a master's degree, you're coming with a master's degree. But if I'm coming and I'm saying I'm doing board prep and I'm spending $30,000, because it does cost that much for some parts of the, you know, tutorial. And I'm like, no, I mean, we ended up spending like about a third of that. Yeah, about a third of that on just the school stuff. Forget about, you know, housing, support, all of that. So me just putting my foot down, like, I'm doing this based on my experience. I worked at General Hospital Lagos. That was the last place I worked. And if I was ever shaky in my decision, that place definitely made it like, nah, girl, you need to get out of here. Another is somewhere, I'm not sure when. Okay, no, I've had the thoughts that I wanted to get into community work. I've had that thought. And I remember in medical school, I was like, I wanted to do surgery. I was in between heart surgery, orthopedics, which is bone, and neurosurgery. I enjoyed all three. But I always thought, I want to be a surgeon, but I also want to be like community work. And this is not, community. No, I wanted to be knee deep in it. And I just didn't see how it merged. And I would pray about it. And my mind would just still be there. I'm like, okay, God, we're going to do it. But when I think when I got to the point where certain decisions were key, I prayed about it and surgery fell off the list. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. So as time went on, I was in the US. I had done my board prep. I was in residency, I remember. And I just started feeling this yearning. And I took it seriously and I decided, and there was a lot of Maiduguri, Boko Haram thing and displacements. And I read a news article about the plight of people in IDP camps. And I just had the idea of just doing something for the children health-wise, because, you know, when people are displaced, obviously nutrition is affected, hygiene is affected. And then even stress affects your immunity. So imagine your immunity is low, you're not getting good food, you're exposed to diseases. So I was like, okay, what can I do from a medical standpoint? And it was 2015 that, you know, I just called a bunch of my friends and I'm like, I want to do this thing. Please chip in. And, you know, people chipped in $20, $100, 40,000, things like that. And we went to this IDP camp in Wasa in Abuja and gave, you know, deworming medication and micronutrients, zinc and some other things to the kids. And then, you know, we listen to the community, some of their needs, try to support them. A festive season was coming up, and I'm like, it would be nice for these kids to have new clothes, which were not so new, but so we did a clothes drive, and people, donated a lot of clothes, and they were very, very grateful. And I was like, okay, this is very fulfilling. This is good. How do we continue? And I'm the kind of person, I don't deal. There's a level or a standard that I operate at. I'm not just going to keep doing something. Someone asked me questions and I'm twiddling my thumb. So I was like, before I do anything else, I have to formalize this. And that was how I set up Amal Outreach. And then I set up Amal Outreach, and it was now, what is your core? What are you doing? Abuja is not my base. IDP camps, displacement is not really my thing. Healthcare is my thing. Community development, yes, but primarily healthcare. So I had to sit down, distill, and be clear. And that, that was how we came up with Amal Outreach and our core mission of sustainable healthcare, primary healthcare for communities, to help, underserved communities. So I hope that helps.
Very beautiful and colorful story. Thank you for sharing. There are a few things I want you to speak more on. For the purpose of this, the potential target audience, which is young Africans. We're still young, but you know what I mean. I would like you touched very briefly on that, but I would like you to speak more on what was the conversation like with you and your parents when it came time to making the decision on what you wanted to do. Was that something that they were heavily influential on you making that decision, or was it something like you had thought to yourself, like, hey, this is what I want to do, and you presented it to them, and the conversation went from there? Like, can you speak more on that?
So now, for those who are Africans, you would know that when you say parents are not necessarily just your mom and your dad, right? So I may say parents, and it doesn't necessarily mean I'm talking about just my mom or my dad. Generally, the thought of going abroad is not foreign or moved against in my family. Like, they actually do encourage education. How high do you want to go? So that one is, I have doctors, lawyers, so many things in my family. People have gone abroad, come back. I have an uncle, what am I even saying? Like, my mom's siblings, they were part of, the generation who are now in their 70s, who went abroad and came back, right? Where I remember my uncle would be like, no, on the day of graduation, companies literally came to their school to recruit them. And he's like, no, I'm on the next flight. Like, he didn't even spend summer in the US. He packed his bags and left immediately. So, but they were never against going abroad, because a lot of my extended who could or who wanted to schooled abroad. So we had that. However, my uncle would always ask us. He always asked us and pushed us, what do you want to do? And I learned that, and I think I took that trait from him, which is be clear on your goals, or he will help you fine tune. And then it's like, how do I help you get there? Right? And then in my own household, nuclear family, the conversations happened, and going abroad was not a problem. It was, what are you going to do? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do a PhD? And I'm like, I don't want to do a PhD. That's work. And it's not the type of work I'm interested in. I wanted to further my education in clinical medicine, not a PhD. Not that a PhD is wrong. I have a lot of friends who have done a PhD, just wasn't my thing. There was also, do you want to do an MPH? I do have an MPH now, but at that time, I did not see the need for it then. So even though a lot of people around me were doing the MPH, at some point I was forced, because I wrote the GRE, that, okay, do some masters, and then find your way into residency. And, because I think maybe because my heart wasn't really in it, I focused on my own plan A. And that was, I wanted to do residency abroad. So The PhD conversation, we did that. The master's conversation, it was like, we'll see. It was kind of, it wasn't even so much of a backup, but it was on the table. But for pursuing, so again, parent figures had asked, had the conversation, encouraged, and then when I brought it up, it was encouraged because, hey, where am I going to find like $10,000 or $12,000? So yeah, so when I brought it up, it was supported. It was supported, and they encouraged me, and we went for it.
Thank you for speaking more on that. I get something that you highlighted, which I feel is a very important point, is that it's not just parents that are influential. You had mentioned your uncle. I followed in his footsteps as well. 2 weeks after graduating from college, I was back in Nigeria. I spent 7 years there until I needed to go expose myself to something, and that's why I came back here. But you had, besides your uncle, your parents, would you say, or who else would you say have been major influences or mentors in your life?
Oh, mentors. Yeah, I did have a number of those. I had great professors in school. I mean, in the US, we call them professors. I had lecturers in school, and I still have great relationships with them. One of my great mentors is still at LASUTH, cardiothoracic surgeon, and really, and it's always nice when, or reassuring and encouraging when somebody sees the spark that you have. You might know, I'm smart or whatever, but somebody who is advanced or ahead of you goes like, you got something. And make sure you nurture it, and they follow up with you. They advise you, this is what you should do. This is how you should do. Some of the things you're doing may not even necessarily be in their line, but at least they're able to guide you, refer you. So yes, I don't know if it's okay to mention them by name, but I don't want to put them out there. But yes, at least that was one of my really, really good mentors. And I did have other uncles. Again, like I said, in Africa, it's not just, you have a village. You have a village, and I'm a Lagos Island person. So people who know Lagosians and Lagos Island, we know that we have uncles everywhere. Either it's by marriage, either it's your neighbor. He's your uncle, his family, and we're good. So I did have a lot of, extended family members and uncles and aunts who, they're like, oh, you're chirpy, you're intelligent. They're always like, oh, whatever you're doing, oh, you're going to be good. You're good. But then there are things where they would come and be like, okay, so what are you doing? This is what you're doing. Okay, this is what you need. Make sure you don't do this. Make sure you don't do that. There are those things. Don't get pregnant. Don't do this. Don't do that. Try to focus. There are some who just give you that social support. There are those who give you that academic support, like I said, like my professors. And there are just some, like, it's just general life support where they speak life into you. You see, we're like, oh, don't worry. That's, you're a smart cookie. You're going to do well. I'm proud of you. And when you're going through a rough patch, they are there for you. And because mentorship is in different, it's not just in academics, it's not just in job, but sometimes in your spiritual life, your psychological state, you have people who mentor you to be better, to aspire to something, either a state in life. So yes, there's been a lot of, and also friends. Like sometimes we think mentorship always has to come from above, people older or more advanced. Sometimes there's peer mentorship. And I have my best girls to thank for a lot of things, because when it's rough, the first set of people you're going to is your friend, and you're boo-hoo-hooing and they console you. And my best friend, she will be like, girl, you got it. Like, no, you are smart. Don't let anybody talk you down. They remind you of who you are, because many times they even see you more. They see parts of you that maybe your parents don't know. Right. And they're like, I remember when you did this. Remember when you said this. Don't worry. You're good. You got it. Take a deep breath. Just breathe. Just do this. Realign or redesign whatever it is you're doing, and you can go. So there's a lot of peer mentorship. My friends, who supported, my best friend. And then also, like I said, immediate family members, cousins, siblings. And even younger siblings who will be like, we are looking up to you, we are proud of you. And you're like, I cannot let you down. I have to do better. So there's a lot of that. Yeah.
Thank you. I love that answer. I love the fact that you are aware of the holistic, aspect of influence. A lot of people have this, misunderstanding that it has to come from above, but thank you for highlighting the fact that it could come from your peers and also from the people below you. So the next set of questions I want to ask you it revolves around the intention of this whole platform. Like I shared with you earlier, the aim is to promote independent thinking and purposeful living amongst young Africans. And just listening to you so far, I can bet my money that you're an independent thinker. um, so that said, what does independent thinking mean to you? Like, how would you describe it to, one of those your younger six people that are looking up to you?
So everybody obviously has thoughts of their own, right? You have thoughts that I would say generally of yours, originally yours. And then, but also as one grows older, just as how they tell us where that, oh, children are this, children are that, and society or parenting is what shapes them into something else. Like, they say children are naturally inquisitive. And then they say, the education system changes us to be less inquisitive because it just say, learn this, and that's it. I believe as we grow older, depending on the influence around you, the encouragement you get, and the society you're growing up, the constructs, right? Voices, there will always be influence. Home, religion, community, society at large, peers. But everybody in some form has a voice. And, it's almost like your inner voice that just spurs you what to do, get up, go do this, whatever. I guess, again, the construct, the influence around us, and how strong-willed each person is also. Me, yes, I'm strong-willed. I'm quite strong-willed. So can influence, and sometimes you now start having quote unquote voices in your head where you now start dialoguing. But I also notice, especially in my own personal life, is that sometimes if we're not careful, and it's not even just if we're not careful, it happens. Sometimes society or the influence around us shapes our own voice. And you are so immersed in what is on the outside that it has merged with yours. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just you are echoing something. And so I think that in terms of independent voice, even though it's something subconscious, one has to have an extra layer of consciousness to be able to say, because I had to develop the habit of questioning myself when I'm thinking something. Why am I having that thought? Where did I pick that from? Where did I learn that? And so I try. I may not always succeed. I don't even know. I might think I succeed and I don't. Or I might think I'm not succeeding and I am. Is distilling, is this really what I think? Or am I thinking this because X, Y, Z? Because I heard this, because I heard that, or because I felt this way? What do I want? So gradually over time, I do the work of intermittently asking myself. And when I'm speaking with people, my siblings, friends, whatever, we're trying to make a decision. And they're like, and because of this, I'm going to, I say, stop, remove people. What do you want? Imagine you are in a place, in a state where anything and everything is possible. What do you want? Undiluted. It sounds crazy. It sounds out of this world. Say it out so that when there's influence, when there's compromise, when there's this other things that's shaping, you know what your original starting point is. And you know why, or you try to, why is good, why you're changing, but at least you know what you are changing from when you're making a change. So if you have an opportunity, so because it's like someone saying, and because things are hard, I'm just going to drink Gary and Ekpa. Meanwhile, what you really wanted to eat is shawarma. You know that if you run into shawarma, the chances that, or opportunity to get shawarma, the chances that you eat shawarma is less because you are so focused on that Gary and Ekpa. So I'm like, you don't know what life will throw at you. Give yourself that knowledge of this is what I want, so that if that opportunity presents itself, you're like, oh, that's my primary goal. Well, don't worry, you people, I was managing you. I'm gonna go for that. So independent thinking is good. To have a voice, everybody has a voice of their own, everybody has their own agency, and it's good to train your voice and let it be strong. Even if you're a quiet person, even if you're an outspoken person, even sometimes outspoken people are not necessarily touting their own voice. That's the thing. People are shy, people are whatever it is, they are echoing what they hear around. So because someone is speaking out loud does not mean it's their independent thoughts. Everybody should try to distill and be clear of what their own independent thoughts is. And when you are making changes or making other choices, you know what you're changing from. Another thing I would say about independent thought is, as much as it is good to have independent thoughts and to be open, your way, your thought is not the only right way. I stay clear, or I'm cautious of people who say one way, oh, this is the only way it's going to be done. No. That is what you are aware of, or that is what you people have adopted, but that is not the only way. There is always another way. There is always, we just have to find it, or we have to allow it. Sometimes it's because it's not allowed. There's always another way. But what I would say about that is a lesson I learned, because again, going with your own independent thought, I've made some decisions in my life where I did it alone because I'm like, yeah, again, it's my life. It's my choice. And when the chips are down and like we joke in Nigeria, the consequences. But when the consequences are down, it's mine. In Yoruba, they will say, Tony di baba, ti di baba je, Tony di londa. When the butt is rotten, it is the problem of the owner of the body, right? So I use that to say, no, I'm going to make this decision on my own. And I did that. Some of it went well, some of it didn't go well. And I'm like, okay. And then in some of it that didn't go well, I realized that my circle had opinions that if I had consulted them and given them room to express their opinions, their reservations, their questions, we probably, would have like, okay, let's do that differently. Let's iterate differently. So now what I'm learning is, yes, I still have my voice and I would strongly support, but I'm actively soliciting, of course, certain people, not just everybody, certain people who know me to the point where they'll be like, ma'am, I know that this thing is shiny to you right now, but based on what we've talked about, based on what you've expressed when you were more lucid or more serious or more whatever it is, I don't think it aligns. You're probably getting carried away by XYZ. Let's sit down and look at it. Because sometimes, again, it's like a hill, 360 degrees. You can only stand on one point and see that vision, that view. Other people are standing on other points and seeing things differently, and they can highlight what you can't see to you. So it's not like before, I didn't used to take people's advice. I didn't used to seek people's advice. But again, because I'm so strong-willed and I'm quite strong persona or whatever, like I'm the one who, I'm one of the ones where they'll come to ask and I would give the decision like, oh, this is what you need to do, da. So people tend to be like, oh, she's good. She's good. Yes, she's good, but she's not perfect and she doesn't have all the answers. So The smart ones, the ones who are the leaders, the ones who are the head, the ones who are the voice. What I would say is, yes, you have independent thoughts, you have great thoughts, but give room for people to bring other opinions and criticisms, whatever it is. Give room for others' voices and let that maybe join in, or at least you may still make your decision, but at least you are cognizant of that. So that's what I would say about independent thoughts.
I can tell you're very strong-willed and have a strong personality, and I love it. I love it. Something you meant, a few things I'd like to highlight from you what you said that really struck a nerve. Remove because. I love that so much because a lot of us are, easily influenced, by it may not be other people's opinions, but like the circumstances you are in. The example you gave about Gary and Ekpa, because of our circumstances, we limit what we are capable of. So I love that. I love that you mentioned that. I also love the fact that you mentioned that it's something you train. You train yourself to develop that ability. It's not something that you're no matter how strong will or strong of a personality you are from birth, it's still something that you train yourself to be able to listen to that voice within that it's already innately there. And the last point which you mentioned or last thing I picked up was allowing outside input, external input, but you know giving it that allowing it with a grain of salt, if I may, being able to, take all that in, analyze it, compare it with your own original thoughts that didn't come with because then now make the decision. Very, very, I love the answer. I love the answer. Besides, or how you answered it, sorry. Besides being strong-willed and having a strong personality, what other traits would you say an independent thinker has?
Uh I'm trying to traits of an independent thinker. I don't think it would be in one spectrum, because one might be tempted to say, oh, they are courageous. There are people who are independent thinkers. That there are some people that in life we probably met them, they'll be like, that one, he doesn't talk, but he's going to do what's in his mind. Right. So yes, I think being resolute is one where they're sure. I think independent thinker also there's clarity. I think that's one thing that is clarity of, because they've probably ruminated on that thing and they've distilled it. And if you're coming with your own original thoughts, I want to assume that so I think clarity is one thing. Clarity of mind, clarity of thoughts. They know where they are coming from. They know what they are going to and why. There may be parts that, you're like, you're not sure of the journey, but at least we know we are going to Joelegba. However you want to move, we're going to go to Joelegba. I guess they would have leadership traits of some sort. But it may not be leadership of people, and that's the thing. Because again, because someone is smart or they have good thoughts does not mean they can manage people, because leadership is about managing people. So maybe I would take that back. Let's see.
Would you say self-leadership is, if you say leadership traits, would you say self-leadership?
Yes, definitely. I think self-leadership, because they guide themselves. They're clear that, and that was the part of them knowing where they are going. So I would say confidence, which will come with clarity. Sometimes creativity, if they are, especially in the creative space. Honesty. But then again, the honesty is like half and half. The honesty, because someone can be a clear thinker and have clarity and have confidence, but they're a scammer. And they are just clear. They are clear on how they want to scam you. But so we might remove honesty there. But I think they have introspection. There will be confidence there. They are very analytical. And I think the analysis is what will lead to that clarity of thought, problem solving. I think self-criticism might also come under there, just because they're your own thoughts. Because if someone is parroting other people's thoughts, it's like, this is what they said, and they just leave it at that. But if it's your own, and you're analyzing it, you're like, am I sure? Is it good? If I open my mouth and they say you should have kept quiet, now we know you're stupid, or we know you're not up to snuff. So I think self-criticism is something, but there are also people who question everything or question a lot of things. So they delve into things, they analyze it, they ask questions. And it's unfortunate that, and I experienced this, where you are asking questions, not necessarily to challenge, to understand. And people take it as if you're challenging them. And it's just like, yeah. So I think those are some of the traits I can say, where they have clarity of thought, they have some creativity, they question things. There's self-criticism that, please ease up on yourself on that. There's self-criticism, self-judgment, but also there's confidence, because I think if you've thought about it enough, you're confident enough in your answer. Sometimes, of course, let's not lie, some of these things should stay in the head, because I tell people that sometimes the moment it comes off your tongue, you're like, that wasn't quite what we were thinking, but okay. So yeah, I think those are some of the traits. But again, all of it doesn't necessarily translate to intelligence. It doesn't necessarily translate to logical thinking, because again, logical thinking uses the information that somebody has and they are processing, right? So if somebody has subpar information, that's what they're processing. And the endpoints they come to, whether it's independent or not, the line is like you've traveled on a jiggly road. That's what you know, and that's the solution, this endpoint you're going to arrive at. Versus someone who drove on a smooth road or a road that doesn't have potholes and things like that. The conclusions we're arriving at are different, even though they are independent and they drove themselves, right? So it doesn't necessarily translate to intelligence. People are independent thinkers and they're thinking shit. Pardon my language.
Your pardon, and because I've enjoyed this conversation so far. You had mentioned how the ability to think independently is something you train yourself to, right? Are there any particular things you consciously do to train yourself to become that way?
So it's I think it's just taking time out to dissect your thoughts and self-reflection. And I noticed from a young age that I did that a lot, and I paid attention to it. So the training, I mean, it might come innate naturally to some people. I don't know, maybe it was something I picked up or it came naturally to me. So I would just, whatever it is, and for me, it actually started with my reaction to some things. And I'm like, okay, so what's going on? Why did you do that? Why did you respond like that? Why are you trying to do this? And I tried to clarify. So it was just analyzing my thoughts. It really was analyzing why are you thinking that? What made you think that? And what are you trying to get out of it? And sometimes like, oh, this is not quite right. And you reverse course and you try to rejig things. But it was really, honestly, I think it's just analyzing my thoughts and then questioning the source or my first contact with that kind of thought or that kind of behavior, that kind of reaction. And sometimes I trace it back to things where either, oh, I'm mirroring what someone else done, or I'm reacting, right? Or I'm repeating a reaction. So I try to just question my thoughts, lay it all out, ask as many why, root cause analysis, as they say in, science, root cause analysis. I try to ask why, what, when, till I can't go far. And sometimes I still find myself thinking, and I'm thinking back to something, just reminds me, I'm thinking back to something that happened 10 years ago, and I'm still making inferences from them and some of it are lessons, or some of it are things that now guide my current decisions. So yeah.
Thank you. Self-reflection, asking why until you can ask why anymore. Okay. So now on to purpose, right? Which is a topic, that has what's the word I'm looking for? Eluded mankind for years. What would you say purpose is? And tough one, eh?
I think it's your why. It's your reason. And sometimes, some of us will be like, depending on what some would say GPS or your North Star is, personal North Star, it can be something that you feel like, oh, is divine for people who are religious or spiritual. And for some people, it's just like, okay, this is my purpose. And sometimes it's not even a lifetime thing. It's a seasonal thing. Like, so I think it's just your why. It really is your why. But why for what? It could be why for my life. It could be why for going out today. It could be why for going to school. Why? What is my purpose for getting this degree? But of course, in general, colloquial terms, we tend to use purpose for like the why of your life. So maybe we'll stick with that. Is what is the why of your life? What is the reason? Why are you here? Why are you doing life? And why are you doing life the way you're doing life, right? Because it's the why also is related to the how. Because you can have a why, and that why answers how you are doing what you are doing. You can say, oh, someone can say, my why is to heal the world. You can heal the world by being a doctor, being a dietitian, being a massage therapist, being a motivational speaker, by being a musician, by being a dancer, right? So your why is the reason, but the how is very different. I have people who will say, oh, I want to take care of people. I want to get people healthy. And I'm like, you don't have to go to medical school, nursing school. You can get people healthy by being a dietitian, by being a fitness enthusiast, fitness trainer, doctor, nurse. There's so many ways you can get to one point. So it's the reason that of what you're doing. There's the what, there's the how, there's what you are doing, what you are working towards, there's how you're doing it. And the why is the encompassing reason that makes you continue to do it the way you're doing it. Because people can say, hey, but why are you going on the streets and preaching? There are people who they're doing street preaching, and you'll be like, but you can go and set up a church. And they're like, but that is not my reason. I was sent to people on the streets. I'm building now, and I've had the opportunity to build a, how would we pay, luxury or higher costs or whatever service for healthcare. And I did start it, but it just didn't feel like me. And when I had an event, it reminded me, I said, that's not why I started this. It reminded me of my why. My why is to serve underserved people, a certain group of people. Somebody else, it's not like I cannot serve the rich. I can. But you should know that this is my primary. I'm coming to you either for a reason that either you asked me or there's a value you're deriving or something but it doesn't matter what happens. I will always come back to base. So I think it's just your reason why you wake up every morning, why you do what you do. I've been working so hard. I'm like, this in 2 days, I'm going to rest, but I'm not. I'm still making calls, taking meetings, doing this, doing that, because I have that goal, and it's what's driving you. You see people, they're working like crazy. They're pushing, they're going hard at something. It is because you have that thing in you where it is the reason. You see parents who go to the ends of the earth for their children, and they're like, my why is because my children must succeed. You see somebody, they'll say, this woman is selling akara from morning till night, then she'll go and do this, she'll go and do that. And it's because her why can be, no, I do not want my children to sell akara, right? I want my children to do better than me, and they are working tirelessly. So it is the reason you labor. It is the reason you put your life on the line. You grind to the bone, even though grind to it sounds passionate, but please don't grind to the bone, because we need you to continue, right? But it is the thing that you're willing to do to your last breath. And I think that's just that compelling, overwhelming reason that you will not have rest. In a lot of cases, like in my case, whenever I wasn't doing this work, I was depressed, period. Point blank, period. I'll be at work, at my doctor work, sitting at the computer typing, and then I'll just be like, is this what you're going to be doing with your life? This is your life. I'll be talking to myself, and the next thing, I will talk to my best friend, and I will just start crying for no good reason. And I'll be like, I'm tired of this work, and I'm typing, and I'm talking to my best friend, and then we're iterating like, okay, so what can you do? How can you do it? And I just had to figure out a way to do it in bits, right? In little bits and pieces. And as long as I was working on it, I had peace. And that's when I knew, like, this thing, let me just find a way to face it squarely, because this is the thing that makes my heart beat well in a way that I have rest.
Oh, you actually, what's it called? Answer the next question I was gonna ask you.
Oh.
But I would still want to ask it in a different way. You had mentioned how you were taking, first of all, the depression was what made you realize that, or not realize, but what made it, would I say, what's the word I'm looking for here? It was concrete that you were not doing what it is you were supposed to be doing, right? That depressive feeling. And as far as you were taking bits, taking little steps towards, your purpose, you felt alive. I'm not sure if you mentioned earlier, maybe I missed it, but how did you discover that? Like, how did it come to you that this is what you want to do? Serve the on the serve.
I'm part of this group. It's called CEO, and one of the things I learned is how it's the irony of life, how pain propels and it fuels your purpose. The first time I had the idea for doing this or whatever remotely related to it was, I think it was 2014. And I remember, I think I put it on my Facebook, it's somewhere there, where I said, oh my God, I think I found the thing that if I did it and I did it well, I could meet my maker and say, yeah, sir, I did what you asked me to do. and I did your job, I did your work. But because that period, for whatever reason, I just had that clear idea that I just need to find a way to take healthcare to struggling people. But why did I settle on struggling people? Because it could have just been healthcare. There's so many people doing healthcare and doing it different, and they are also fulfilling a purpose. They are serving people well. And I think that's where Because many times people are not solving problems that is not their experience, right? And that's where the divineness of the whole thing comes, is that you are set on a path to walk a journey and experience certain things that now inspires the thought of, this needs to change, this needs to improve, right? And so the path of my life and the journey of my life and the people I am focused on serving really was inspired by my mother. My mom was a trader, businesswoman. Some of it, today they would probably say entrepreneur. These days, if she was doing that, she would say entrepreneur, right? Hard worker. If you go to the markets of Lagos, Port Harcourt, Ibadan, all around the country, these are people who will wake up 5, 6 a.m. Of course, office people wake up at 5, 6 a.m. because in Lagos traffic, you have to sit down for 3 hours, right? But these are people in the office, you're doing the hustle, you're sitting at your desk. But these are people, they wake up, they go out, they're sitting in the sun many times. They're sitting outside. They're hustling for customers. I grew up in Lagos Island. Even though I was not hustling for customers, when I was younger, I would sit in the shop with my grandma and people are passing and you'd be like, oh, do you want to buy this? They talk. I was little, but because I was precocious, I don't know if precocious is the right word, but I had a mouth and I'm forward. So I was interacting with people, and this was me under 10 for sure. So between like 6 and 10, you're talking to customers, you're doing this, you're doing that. Maybe we were a little fortunate. My grandma had a shop, whether she sold, whether she didn't. She would sell some, we would sell, but she was good. But a lot of these people, the point is, they are there 6 days a week. If you go to where it's situated in Lagos Island, Monday morning to Saturday nights, it is bustling. Tell me how somebody is having a headache and she's calculating the money. Look at the economy now. It's calculating if I have to, for me to be able to take food home for today, or for my children to be able to take money to school to eat tomorrow morning, I have to make X amount of money. You're not saying she's having a headache. She will just pack her shop and go home. She will buy Panadol, she will buy Fensic, sit down there. If that headache is blood pressure of 200, she doesn't know. She doesn't really care. You get what I'm saying? So they're so choked up and trapped in that cycle. And I've worked in government hospitals where on Sunday, what you will see on Sunday or Saturday nights will surprise you. You see people that their children have been ill. When I worked in pediatrics in Lassus, and they'll be like, has been ill kind of for the past 2 days. And I'm like, why are you just coming today with a child that is lifeless? Is they waiting? We were just waiting for somebody to come money, or we did not have time. I came back from the office late, and then we were waiting. And you're angry. But then when I took time and I went, it's like many people don't even have the room. Now, living in the States, I see that in people who are essential workers and hourly workers. I see patients here and they defer their healthcare. They can't take off work, because in a full-time job, you just take excuse. I'm going to the doctor. You take excuse. Your salary will not change. For somebody who is doing hourly work, if you don't come, go chop. They will dock your pay, right? And doctor's office, you come to doctor's office, you check in. If you are lucky in this America, by 2 hours, you're out. But if you are not, you will sit down in the waiting room because there's just a lot going on. And before you know what's happening, half the day is gone. If you're earning $10 an hour, that's $40. And your paycheck is going to make you dizzy. Just that $40. People who $40 is their phone bill, their light bill, their electricity bill, their gas bill. So a lot of all these things. So now take that back to Nigeria, where people, they're daily earners. They're there 6 days a week. And that Sunday is just a little rest. And for those who like to chop life, they go to party. Because we see them. But yes, and I settled on that because of my personal experience with my mom. My mom had been trading in Okari. I was born in that area. I grew up there, and I saw her. Again, she was probably one of the fortunate ones. But again, fortunate in terms of maybe she had a bit more means than many others. But that's the thing, that sometimes even money is not going to help you, because knowledge comes, opportunity also, right? It was when I got into medical school that I saw that my mom was having leg swelling, that the leg swelling now clicked in my head. And I was like, based on what they are teaching us in school, this is bad. This is bad. And I eventually got her. And again, this is government hospital. So when she's coming to the hospital, it is a whole day's affair. But I'm like staying on it. Like, ma'am, you have to show up here. And even, God forgive me, I'm working in the hospital. There are days she will come to the hospital and we cannot see because I'm doing ward rounds. There was a day my mom came. I was doing admissions in the emergency. She called me. I told her I'm in the emergency. She came. I don't want to cry because I thought about, and whenever I think about that day, I feel really, 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 really bad. I remember she was wearing white Irambuba, and she came and she waited and waited and waited. And I just kept, I'm coming. And eventually she couldn't wait and she left. And she wasn't upset with me, but whenever I remember that day, I just feel so, so bad, because even though I was doing my duty, but she was mine to take care of. And I couldn't just stepped out, right? And that's what medicine does to you. That's what medicine does to you. It makes you feel like they're not going to survive without you. And medicine has this toxic thing where even the seniors, they don't encourage rest. They don't encourage whatever. You tell someone you're not feeling fine. You tell someone your mother died. You tell someone, they're like, but who is going to? I've worked a job where we had an accident. And my senior said, well, I'm waiting for you for ward round. I said, we had an accident last night. My phone's been off, that there's a lot going on. She said, I'm waiting for you for ward round. She waited. She stayed in the hospital and waited hours. In that time, she would have done the work. She waited. But anyway, that's for another day. So I settled on my population just from my own experience and the pain. My mom went through a lot. She had an infection. I can't remember what the initial infection was. And when you have infection that's overwhelming enough, it causes organ damage, especially the kidneys. So she had kidney damage from that whole ordeal because she had sepsis. I think the infection got into her blood. She went into a coma. And I was young. I didn't even, we didn't know. It was all, we were hearing about these things because hair did not grow in her ogo. Stopped growing. That's how long she was laying down in the hospital. Hair didn't stop growing in her occiput. Yes. So whenever we were asking, it was that hair thing that brought up. And then her mom's older brother is a doctor, and he's the one who took care of her. And then, they were now telling us the story about, and they had to shock her. She had a heart attack. They had to shock her. And I know these things, it sounds like shit in the movie, but they had to shock her. She showed us the part in her arm. And this was not shock. It was like, I heard they use live. I'm like, what? They did not use 1, 2, 3, clear. It was not that. It was like my soul left my body when I heard, because I was like, and she recovered from that. And because follow-up care, continuity of care is not something that's strong. And yes, people will go, especially government hospitals. My doctor said I should come back. But for the average person who is not in that, it doesn't click to like, oh, I saw the doctor for this, I need to make sure. So she didn't have follow-up care for that. And apparently, you know, from that, the cycle is she had kidney damage. Now, with kidney damage, if you don't manage things well, it starts affecting the blood pressure. So her blood pressure started going up. If the blood pressure is not controlled, it damages the kidney further. If the kidney is not taken care of, it causes more blood. So she was in that cycle to the point where, you know, her kidney is supposed to filter extra water out of the body. That's where we make urine. And her body was holding on to it. And that's where her legs started getting swelling. And so I picked up on that and got to the hospital. We found out that she had like, her kidneys were working at like maybe 50% or less. In fact, she had one kidney that was working. The second kidney was blocked. It was just mad. It was just mad. And, you know, our whole ordeal, trying to get kidney transplants. And I keep saying, God gave us a miracle. I have never heard it. I'm sure it happened somewhere, but I have not heard it. She went into kidney failure. She had surgery, had lost a lot of blood, reacted to an antibiotic, developed kidney failure. Her one kidney that was managing, so she had to go on dialysis, and she was in Nigeria on dialysis for a year plus. That stuff is not anything, especially in countries where you're paying out of pockets. And the rates of renal problem is escalating in Nigeria, and it just makes me so scared because that stuff is literal bankruptcy. We were scraping everything you have with your fingernails. We were scraping everything together just to. It was literally, we were working and everything just to keep her alive. My mom said she'll be trying to save money. You're supposed to do dialysis 3 times a week. She was saying she wants to do it twice a week. So she'll tell them they should take extra water. I said, Madam, what are you doing? She will tell the technician they should take extra 1 liter of water. She will go, man, don't worry, she'll know that so that she will not come back the next time. She will now come, she will not be like, her hands are stiff because they took out extra water. You know, sometimes it sounds funny now, but it was horrifying. And sometimes, you know, she'll be saying they should do it, and I'll just pretend as if I didn't hear because I'm like, see, that would save us like $40,000. It's 40,000 naira this week. So I'll just form on looking. But you know, there'll be days where she comes home and she looks like it goes on, and like, what happened? And she'll tell you, she say, you know, one young person or this person died on the dialysis machine. And she went through a lot of that and it shook her. We're trying to get kidney transplant. She went out of the country. None of us, the kids, were a match. We tried to get outside, you know, people testing, After all the money we put together, we got support. Money was running out. We're like, okay, no. We brought her back. Say, let's regroup. And then she came back. She did the first dialysis. And then the second one, they were like, your numbers are not bad. You really don't need dialysis. Come back in 2 days' time or in 3 days' time. She went back in 3 days' time and they were like, your number is good. Don't come back next week. Come back next week. Madam, you don't need dialysis. I'm like, what? For 12 years, my mother was in end-stage renal disease and she was not dialysis dependent. I was, as in, it got to a point that we forgot. And see, in Nigeria, if you talk to renal doctors, kidney doctors, when people are renal patients, they'll tell them, don't eat meat, don't eat protein, don't eat this. My mother is a Lagos woman. Hey, she'll be like, I want to chop the life of my head. She'll call today. She'll say, it's goat meat I want to eat today. Oh yeah, go to the market, tell them to kill it. Sure. She'll say, ẹja tútù ló wù mí jẹ lénìí. There was a day she sent me a video. She told my sister to make the video. She called me. She said, I'll call me. She prayed for me. Thank you. This, da. Say, I'm eating crab. I'm eating crab and fresh fish. I said, it's good. Enjoy the life of your head. So she was 12 years. She went and her number was, so for people, somebody might listen to this and be like, number one, I'm a doctor. I know what I'm talking about. Two, I know the numbers. Her kidney function was GFR 50. She was hovering between 15 and 13. She was hovering between 15. And once 15 is anything below 15 and below is end stage, they start planning you for dialysis. But somehow, and she wasn't, I'm weak. No, she's up and about. When she's talking like this, you don't know that anything is wrong with her. We had to force her to stop selling, trading, working. Now, okay, you're retired. We take care of your biz. So she will call and be like, somebody's a share bill, somebody's clinic will be like, just send the bill. Please, don't disturb anybody. Don't go and say, even that she still did not sit down. Because she'll be like, let her be making ice block and be selling. She'll still be selling. And she said she shall not going out. So, okay, if it makes her happy, it makes her feel alive. So she was still, it wasn't like she was managing or she was weak. So I still call it a man. I'm eternally thankful to God for that because he gave us a break. He gave us breathing room. We were able to see, it's like you put aside all the things you want to do in your life. You wanted to travel, you wanted all of that to decide. And you're just focused on how do we keep this person alive? So that gave us room to breathe. I think that was my brother went for his master's, everybody, able to now leave. And so her journey is really what inspired my focus of informal markets, underserved people, but informal people who are going out. They're not necessarily in an office because office people have opportunities for HMO and things like that. Some of them don't, and we can serve them too. But my target is market people, artisans, people who are working for themselves. And it was really, like I said, pain propelling you and fueling your purpose is that the journey that we went through with my mom and just seeing and just knowing that there are hundreds of thousands of people, women, men, parents. And again, if you think about the economic impact of it for a daily earner, even for an office earner, when you're spending your disposable income on healthcare, you now have to start deciding, are you buying food? Are you paying school fees? Or you're paying health bills? The economic impact sometimes is very catastrophic. Imagine if the sole breadwinner of a family has a stroke. They are not only not bringing income, the little money that other people are generating is now being swallowed by this. So for me, that drove me to, we're not just taking care of problems. Dial it back. How do we make sure you remain healthy? Health is our own primary focus at my organization. It's not removal of illness, curing illness. We can do that. Anybody can do that. How do I keep you healthy? And our people don't really think like that. We're hoping we stay healthy, right? But how are we really focusing on how we remain healthy so that we can serve our community, so that we can fulfill our purpose? How do you stay healthy? And it's by preventing illness. It's by catching things early and addressing them in the best way possible quickly. So I hope that answers that.
Definitely did. And thank you for being vulnerable. I really appreciate that. For what it's worth, I am grateful that your mom is alive and kicking as well.
She's not, unfortunately. I regret to inform you.
Oh.
At detail, as in that woman, she escaped COVID.
Oh yeah.
And at the end of 2021, she went for one party. But again, God's will be done, right? She went for one party. I didn't know. And she went, and then she came. I think the party was like end of August, and in September she came down. And she had COVID. And we had to do like, there's this doctor in Nigeria that kind of runs a service where, so we spoke, I think Doctora, so I'm here and I had to call. I'm like, I need a nurse, because we were like, do we want to go put her in a hospital? I'm not there to coordinate in a hospital like that. And we just did the math of it. And we're like, okay, if we can manage our home, there are more people who are dying. Let them take the hospital bed so we could manage. We needed a nurse, we needed a doctor, we needed this, oxygen. So we got oxygen to the house. We got a nurse who was sitting 24 hours. So I think they would change every 12 hours or something. We had a nurse, we had a doctor who would come intermittently to check on her, take blood, sent to the lab, and did that. So she did that. And by the time, COVID is doing its thing, she needed dialysis, the process. They had to start. She had small veins. She had obstruction of some veins in her neck already. It was hard to get a line. That getting a dialysis cath period was very painful, even for me. And I think God just knew, and she probably also, because I know that her countenance really changed in that period where she had to be going for dialysis. And I think God just knew that it was just going to be something that might be a lot too much for her to bear or something. And she went to dialysis one day and they just called her that her breathing changed. And I suspected she may have had a pulmonary embolism. And that was it. So she was doing dialysis September, and then she passed in November, and towards the end of November. So she's gone.
So sorry for your loss. So sorry for your loss. But from the story, it seems like she was a boisterous woman that lived a good life.
Yes.
hence a part of it in you.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for sharing such a vulnerable and personal story. I really appreciate that. Now we've come to the end of the episode. Pretty insightful conversation, right? Well, if you got some value from it, please go do the needful. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and also share with a friend. I believe one of the best ways this channel is going to grow is by word of mouth. So if you found some value from this conversation at any point, please share with a friend. Thank you as you do. And until the next time we see, I wish you more life and more blessings.